28 years later, The Bone Temple is not a fun film. It's not comforting, and it's definitely not subtle. In fact, at times, it's downright mean-spirited, more so than 28 years later. This is a film that wants to unsettle you, to stress you out, and sit you face to face with just how cruel people can become when the world collapses. But despite its cruelty, and in some ways because of it, The Bone Temple is also the most confident entry in the series since the original. But before I get to the rest of the review, this is my first video since passing 1k subs on the channel, and I just quickly wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to every single one of you. It was such a fantastic and heartwarming way to finish 2025 and has given me the confidence and passion to push this channel into even greater heights in 2026 and beyond. So once more, thank you. Now, back to the film. What newcomer to the franchise Nia DaCosta is able to bring out of Alex Garland's screenplay is impressive. Much of Bone Temple's oppressive tone comes not from the infected, but from the new primary antagonists, the Jimmy Cult. Their presence dominates the film, and the brutality they inflict makes several sequences genuinely difficult to sit through. I've got quite a strong gut when it comes to gore and blood, but there are moments here that are not just uncomfortable, but jaw-dropping in their intensity. That said, the film is far more controlled than its predecessor, where 28 years later occasionally lost its footing, especially and infamously with its ending. The Bone Temple finds a much better balance between the absurd, the heightened, and the grounded. Even the small moments of dark humour feel intentional and well placed, breaking the tension just enough without undercutting the horror. If you are someone who was worried that this sequel will double down on the wackiness from the previous film's finale, you can relax. Bone Temple nails the aggressive tone that the franchise is known for. And what I found to be one of the smartest choices the film makes is who it chooses to focus on. Spike is largely pushed to the background, and that's a good thing. His arc was effectively completed in 28 years later, and this film wisely avoids dragging him back into the spotlight just for the sake of continuity. He's still present and has a role in the film, but he plays a more supporting role than a leading one. Instead, the story centers on the two supporting characters of the previous film, Dr. Kelson and Jimmy Crystal, and that shift gives the film a much clearer and more compelling identity. It also helps that the previous film already did the heavy lifting of returning us to this world. The Bone Temple doesn't need to constantly justify its setting. It feels free to explore the people living inside it. The result is a narrative that feels like two stories naturally colliding, rather than fighting for dominance. Now, thematically, the film is ambitious, more than it can fully support. It explores ideas of religion and belief, particularly how religious figures can be reinterpreted, mythologized, and weaponized in times of chaos. The Jimmy Cult embodies that perfectly. People clinging to meaning only to twist it into control, terror, and violence. There are also strong undercurrents of loneliness, attachment, and mental health running throughout the film. These ideas are appreciated and clearly intentional, but they're ultimately underutilized. The film never gives these ideas a single scene where they fully gel together, and when compared to 28 Days Later, it never reaches the same emotional or thematic highs. For example, there's nothing here as powerful as the dinner scene in the manor. Quick side note, if you want to hear more about 28 Days Later, check out my video on the channel. But what was interesting about this film was how it creatively handled the infected. They're almost replaced entirely by the Jimmy Cult, and I honestly thought it worked. The film reframes the horror away from mindless rage and more towards conscious human cruelty, much like the original and any classic zombie story. It's a return to that idea that any zombie fan is aware of. It's not the infected you should be scared of, but the people. The Bone Temple takes this concept a step further, and what became really compelling was the attempt, however brief, to humanize the infected, portraying them as tragic figures rather than just simple monsters. It's a nod back to classic zombie roots, where the horror comes from a loss of identity, not just the violence. I only wish the film had pushed this idea further, because what little we get is genuinely fascinating. Visually though, there's no denying the impact. The blood and gore effects are outstanding, It's visceral, realistic, and, for lack of a better word, cringe-inducing in the best way. This is up there with some of the strongest horror craftsmanship the franchise has seen. Also, the performances across the board are excellent. Ralph Fiennes is the standout, bringing genuine warmth and humanity to a world almost entirely devoid of it. His role is expanded in this film, and the result is that his performance is restrained, compassionate, and quietly devastating, especially when it's contrasted against the surrounding brutality. It was a smart and important choice from the narrative, and Fiennes takes that compassionate angle and runs with it. Jack O'Connell is equally strong, delivering an unhinged performance that perfectly suits the film's themes. I'm a growing fan of his work, and I'm looking forward to watching him in the future. And Chai Lewis Parry deserves praise for his physical performance as Samson, taking the film's most violent and most tender moments and bringing a real presence and menace. Cinematography-wise, Sean Bobbitt replaces the franchise's staple cinematographer Anthony Dodd Mantle, resulting in a more traditional visual style. The camera choices are less risky, less experimental, but on the flip side of that, become cleaner and more controlled. It may lack the chaotic, you could even say headache-inducing energy of the previous films, but it serves the story well. The ending, however, is where the film slightly stumbles. While the final scene is understandable in intent and was very appreciated, it ultimately feels unnecessary. It's a trap every franchise eventually falls into, and sadly, the film doesn't quite escape it. That said, 28 years later, The Bone Temple is a brutal, unsettling, and often impressive sequel. It benefits enormously from the groundwork laid by his predecessor, boasts excellent performances, immaculate horror craft, and a far stronger command of tone. It may not be as thematically rich as the original, and it doesn't always fully explore the ideas it introduces, but what it does deliver is a confident, disturbing horror film that understands exactly how cruel its world is and refuses to look away. But those are just my thoughts. Now I want to hear yours. Have you seen The Bone Temple? What did you think of it? You can find me now on Letterboxd at ESF_official. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.